Welcome to another episode of Meet the Author Live from New Degree Press. I'm your host, John Saunders. New Degree Press is part of Manuscripts Inc. This enterprise has now published authors from 6 continents and published over 1,500 authors by the end of this year, or will have published over 1,500 authors. This year, New Degree Press, Manuscripts Inc. ranked 293rd on the Inc. magazine 5,000 list. This is the fastest growing privately held companies in America. If you think you have a book in you or want to start or accelerate your movement in the next 12 to 15 months, visit creator.institute now. The next cohort starts this winter 2023. There's a comprehensive coaching program that will take you from idea to published book, not just published, but published like a second-time author, which includes audience creation and activation, very important parts of the journey. So today's episode, Meet the Author Live, is about is an opportunity to learn everything there valuable is to know about the author, really give you a behind the scenes look at the author and a bit about their journey, which is really exciting. Plus, we are going to answer your questions in the chat. So if you have them, please drop them in the live chat if you're joining us through LinkedIn or YouTube Live. And we'll be happy to do those. So today I have with me Victoria Shiroma Wilson. And we're going to chat about her October 22 book, Exceptional Futures, The Power of Identity to Design Positive Change, and talk about how you can leverage identity to make a better life for yourself. So Victoria serves as an executive coach for socially conscious leaders and designs courses in identity, culture, career, and leadership. Dr. Victoria Wilson is passionate about empowering others to design sustainable strategies toward transformation that is in alignment with their values, cultural identities, and unique dreams. Growing up biracial adds dimension and lived authority to her understanding of societal dynamics and the importance of understanding how one's unique voice can be a competitive advantage in today's interconnected world. To feed her insatiable curiosity, she committed herself to a lifetime of learning. Last year, she earned her doctorate from the University of Southern California. Congratulations. Victoria, great to see you. Congratulations on getting your doctorate and having your book out in the world. Great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, John.
Thank you. So how does it feel, Victoria, to have a book out there in the world with your name on the cover?
Oh, wow. You know what? It feels fantastic. Somewhat surreal, to be honest with you, but I mean, so excited. And I think that there's a term that we learned in this program called nervited. So a little nervous, a little excited, but I think more and more I'm less nervous and more excited as we go along.
That is awesome, right? And as you learn, you grow. It's all kind of baby steps in the construction of putting your book together, right? We don't write books, we build them, as we often say around here. And love that you've continued to evolve and grow through this journey. And speaking of growth, what would you say you've learned along the way about yourself, about the book, about your content? What have been some of your key learnings throughout this journey?
Yeah, I would say that this past year has been quite the transformational experience for me. I went into this book with the process, of having this one intention, right? To share that everyone has the potential to design their exceptional future, right? And along the way, I thought that I knew everything that I needed to know. But the great thing about this program is that you get to learn as you go along. You just realize you have not learned enough. And so there's a few nuggets that I think I picked up along the way. And the first thing is that, everyone has an identity, right? Very few people are in touch with it. And even fewer people really know how to leverage it in service of positive change. And the reason why this is really important is that identity and the way we filter the world around us actually serves as a powerful motivator in our lives, right? So we make over 35,000 decisions a day. And some are really important. Most are not, they're inconsequential. And but the thing is that all of it's unconscious and all filtered through the lens of our identity. And the other really important discovery that I made along the way is that, our identity is like a slingshot. We expend a lot of energy just keeping ourselves in place, right? Or we long for something that was, but it's no longer there. And so it's kind of like the elastic of a slingshot here. And what's exciting is that through this book, with the right type of calibrations, you have the potential to release and soar to better things.
So cool. And I know slingshot, right? It's one of the concepts you talk about in your book, right? Could you tell us a little bit about that, which I know we get into a lot more depth in your podcast, which will release Wednesday of this week on the creator community. But could you give us a little bit of a teaser on what the slingshot quest is about?
Yeah. So the framework that I use in this book is what I call a slingshot quest. And so all you really need is what we call the big question, kind of like this, this idea that you can come in and you might have a big question in your life and you just want to lead with that. And you don't have to prepare anything else, right? And use that guide as a guide for really feeding your curiosity about answering some of these, the kind of the big question that you might have around your journey. And so we walk you through the different elements through this quest so that you can come out on the other end knowing more about yourself and knowing more about the positive change and having an actionable plan of strategy or actionable action plan to be able to go and design that exceptional future for yourself.
So powerful. And I love this concept of, right, when you sort of pull something back, it can fly further forward, right? And
Exactly.
there's the
Exactly.
idea. We already got a couple of great notes in the chat here. Doug, thank you. Great people, great program. Look at this guy.
Yay.
Annette Mason, so excited to hear. Victoria, the value of identity. Love it.
Thank you.
Somebody, LinkedIn user, congratulations. You're invited. Yeah, somebody got that one. Oh, there's Hannah, another author of the program. Hannah, thanks for joining us today. Great to see you. I love it. So when you think about, right, you're a busy person, you've got this coaching business, Victoria. How did you fit this whole book journey into your life?
I'm going to laugh a little bit here because I don't recommend the path that I took, but but quite simply, I just completed a doctoral program, right? And so I had finished writing a dissertation that was over 150 pages long, and really outside of my committee and myself, nobody was going to read it. So what was really valuable about that whole process, though, was that I was able to conduct the research and realize that there was, just a way that the self-help industry and the coaching industry really approaches the whole notion of identity. There was a gap there. So especially in the way we talk about culture, context, and identity. And so I felt like, we need to have this message that can help anybody who reads this. And so I merely repurposed the hours that I was dedicating to my graduate studies into writing a book that was loosely based on the dissertation, but really intended for an audience of, way outside of academia. So I made sure that it was accessible and that people can follow along and really feel like, they can get some value out of that experience of reading the book and really trying to apply it to what's going on in their life. One other thing I'll say about that is that it took a lot of patience and understanding from my family, right? Because I had asked them for a few years, for some grace to be able to write my dissertation and to go through the doctoral program, and say, can I have one more year? And they have been so wonderful and so, and just so understanding of that whole process and very supportive.
Just to be clear, when you said you wouldn't recommend the way you went through it, you weren't necessarily not recomming the Creator Institute and New Degree Press, but the model of writing a dissertation and then the book behind it.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, I would not. I very rarely would say, let's go into a very intense doctoral program, and then while you're at it, then follow that on with another year of writing.
Well, that's what's kind of fascinating about learning. I found whenever I've gone into sort of in-depth getting designations and things like this over the years, I always find as soon as I'm done, like my brain is sort of spinning so fast. I'm like, what am I going to learn next? Because it's such a fun part of the journey. And it sounds like that happened to you as well.
Absolutely. And I think the one thing I'll say about this experience with the Creator Institute was the fact that, we were writing in community, right? So you never really felt alone, right? You were going through this process, and the fact that, the whole process of writing the book was demystified in a sense, right? Was just so incredibly helpful.
Demystified, deconstructed, right? All of these things. And I want to drop in for everybody in the chat, for those interested already, Victoria's book is out and available now, and she's doing a special promotion in the month of October for 99 cents on the ebook. I just dropped the link to buy her book in the chat, so go out and get your copy. And her podcast, as I said, on the creator community is going to drop on Wednesday morning, the 26th at 9 a.m. Eastern. That'll be the premiere of her episode. So super excited about that. Really enjoyed our longer form version of this chat. So a lot of people, as they go through this journey, Victoria, learn not only about their book and their content, but about themselves. What do you think you learned about yourself through this whole exercise of writing a book?
Yeah, I mean, well, and I would say I have this unique angle to this simply because I was writing about identity, right? So you can't, emerge without, through the process without actually thinking about about oneself. through the process, right? So I was able to spend a lot of time really reflecting on not only what resonated with me, but also just through gathering the stories, really realizing that I wasn't alone, right? And trying to really get a better, clearer understanding of what my identity was and how it was contributing or holding me back from what it is that I wanted to do. So it was just an enlightening experience all around, and I'm so glad that I did it.
What you said, and you said you learned of examples where identity was holding you back. What does that look like for those who
Yeah,
have no idea what you're talking about? Because this is a pretty interesting concept that I don't know that I've ever heard before. That you're really tying this concept of identity to how we think about things. But what does that look like, Victoria? Could you give us an example?
yeah, and I want to put a little bit of a slight twist on this, because I think for a lot of people, especially for those of us who have gone through who have been coached or gone through a coaching experience, a lot of that experiences are really about, like, they ask, well, what do you want, right? Or, you just need to shift your mindset, in a sense. And really, some of us actually come from cultures that it's not that simple. It's not a very individualistic, culture that, where you're actually at the center of your change, right? And so one of the things that I actually talk about in the book is that what are the messages that we're getting from the world around us, from the systems and the culture around us? How do we use that, in service of change? And how do we do it in a harmonious way that we don't feel like we're having to to abandon a piece of ourselves to be able to make the positive change that we want in our lives?
Wow. So, right, leveraging identity, but not letting go of it at the same time, right? Not changing entirely, celebrating your identity and
Yeah.
really leaning into it to create that better life for yourself. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. So culture and tradition and all that, that's incredibly powerful, right? The funny thing about culture and tradition, though, is that it evolves. So it changes throughout the course. But the thing is, sometimes we're all holding on to what was, right? And so just kind of being able to examine it from a unique perspective, which this book will help walk you through. Then you realize, like, gosh, what are some of the messages that, like, I was internalizing along the way, right? Like, I had inherited along the way, and then I'm folding that to be my truth, right? And so it's a slight shift on what we consider to be change and in service of change.
So, cultures, identities, these things evolve over time, but if we don't sort of study them, they're bound to keep us tethered to maybe not evolving. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. That's perfect.
Let's end the recording here. Uh, a couple more great notes in the chat here. Sachi, do you know this person?
Sachi, yes.
Uh,
Hi,
uh, Thanks for
Sachi.
jumping on here. Annette, back at it again. Writing is a journey, and writing in a community makes it more valuable. Love
So
that.
true.
Totally agree. Never write alone, we always say, right?
Yes, yes.
Little question from the audience here. Wondering what you think readers will find most surprising in your book.
I think what readers will find most surprising is kind of the depth in which they're going to be able to operate. Right. I think a lot of times the author is talking to the reader and saying, "All right, well, here's what you need to know." Right. Whereas I want to take you on this journey, and each journey is going to be unique, and so every part of every chapter in this book actually has a quote, a story, a lesson, and reflective exercises. So you're going to be able to design a journey that's unique to you, and be able to create, and to be really able to clarify what change you want in your life, how your cultural identity is contributing to that process, and then be able to put together an actionable strategy around that.
Wow, right? It's one thing to have great ideas and help us reflect and learn about new things, but if we can't create an actionable plan to move forward, it doesn't get us terribly far. I think the person who asked that question just put their name up, Jill Falgren, I think who might have been.
Hi, Jill.
Thank you for that question, Jill. So here's one for you. Now that you've got this book out there in the world, you've had this coaching business, you've got your PhD. I mean, it's hard to think that you could set any bigger goals for yourself, Victoria, but what kind of goals have you set for yourself for the rest of 2022 and beyond?
Well, it's funny. It's my goals are big and small, in that it's all going to be about marketing, right? And this is just a step in the process. And what I've discovered along the way, with especially the book writing journey, is that writing and launching the book is one whole thing, right? Talking about your book and really, getting people to understand what your book is about is a whole different exercise, right? And John, you've really been instrumental in helping us get prepared in this process. And so it's going to be really about marketing, marketing, marketing. Ultimately, I want to start a movement where people are really able to have that clarity around their identity and have the tools to be able to drive the positive change that they want in their lives. And so the other twist on this is that I met a fellow author through the program who actually helped me reframe the way I was approaching this, right? And I, rather than looking at this as a kind of like a slog, right? She said, you know what? I need 2022 to be fun. And I'm like, you're absolutely correct on that. So I'm trying to have fun with this. So along the way, so in addition to writing the book, I actually created a couple of courses that, I'm going to be teaching specifically around like, all right, what are the tools to be able to find your, to discover your identity even further. And I've also been fortunate enough to be invited to a few different organizations to talk a little bit about organizational identity and leadership identity, and how that's going to really be essential to thrive as we're entering into this, or have been part of this period of uncertainty.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. Thank you for the kind words on the media training. It is different, right? You're so immersed in your book for all these months,
Yes.
and then suddenly you have to talk about it and take these 200 to 250 pages and sort of crush them down to a bunch of 3-minute stories, right? It's
Right.
it's not easy, and it's fun spending time on that. And I've just dropped your podcast episode in the chat, just for people that I think I did. There it goes. For people that want to check that out, the longer version of Victoria's story here, to see that, as I said, is coming out this Wednesday. Here's one for you. Would you write another book, Victoria? She's now the PhD book. Is there another journey for you ahead? Maybe give it a couple of years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there was actually there were a few stories that I actually decided to hold for my next book. Right. So part of this process is that we collect stories, right? And we weave that into the greater narrative of a book. But I was also seeing this theme around professional identity, right? And so the whole notion of like what we thought our professional lives were going to be like might not turn out the way it is. And so I'm actually thinking about writing the book that just right now, the working title is going to be something around like how to quit the job that your parents brag about. So and talk a little bit about like cultural expectations and identity, and how that really makes an impact on the professional decisions that we make throughout our lives. So we'll see. I'm gonna wait a little bit, but I think that's my next book.
Wow. How to quit the job that your parents like to brag about. That is a catchy title, my friend, and I think one that will get a lot of people's attention, right? So so many people, right? You're raised and your parents say, oh, this is the thing, you're going to go to college and get this kind of job, and off you go,
Yes.
right?
And your life is going to be perfect afterwards. And then you realize, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So helping them to walk through the exercise, just through a number of questions about, is this the right thing to do, right? Or is this the right direction to go in, and really talk a little and just kind of help demystify that process for them.
The right decision for you, right?
Yeah.
Love that. If other folks have questions, please continue to drop them in the chat. Happy to do it, because we're going to jump into the rapid fire questions here in just a minute and keep on moving. So you also had a question or a story around 2 soccer coaches, right? Was that you? What did 2 different soccer coaches have to do with change? What is this all about?
Yeah, no, I wanted to share this because this was really my editor's favorite story, and it is something that it goes back to a personal experience that I had, that I thought that really the messages that I picked up from that when I was in high school really just carry through today. So it takes me back to this personal story from what I learned in high school. So if you were to ask me to describe myself in high school, I would say the word athlete was probably something that wouldn't even make the top 10 list, right? In fact, I viewed running as a mild form of torture. And I'm sure that there might some people out there that really agree with me on that. So honestly, it was due to a healthy dose of peer pressure that I actually got involved in soccer. Right. So, for the first 3 years in high school, the team was coached by somebody I'll call Coach S. And he was this gregarious and popular PE teacher, and everybody loved him. And on Coach S's team, I was assigned to a right midfielder position, right? And for those of you who know soccer, a right midfielder or midfielder position requires a lot of running back and forth up and down the field. And even though I was a starter, I never felt like I was in the flow. Like I was always really just, not feeling like I was at my best, right? And I felt like, to be honest, I thought I was a pretty marginal player at best. But during my senior year, like after tryouts, we actually found out that Coach S was not going to be coaching our team. It was actually going to be Coach W. And so now, first of all, everything, at the time, that was like, earth shattering, because everything in high school is like dramatic and earth shattering and everything like that. So I just felt like my world was turned upside down. But the news was devastating to me on a couple of fronts. So first, Coach W didn't strike me as the most valuable authority figure, because he was the teacher with the widest repertoire of dad jokes that were out there, right? So as a high schooler, I was just like, oh my gosh.
The widest repertoire of what?
Dad jokes.
Oh, dad jokes. Nice.
So, so he had this wonderful repertoire. Every morning he would start off with a dad joke, and we were just like, oh my gosh, like, who is this guy? So, but the other thing about Coach W was that he was my geometry teacher. And that was like this academically disastrous course for me, which I don't think we should discuss any further here. But here's the thing. During one of the early practice sessions with this new coach, he pulled me aside and he's like, why are you in a midfielder position? And I kind of like, I don't know, because again, momentum, it was always the way it's been. So why change anything, right? So he's like, why don't you try out a left wing position, right? And so for those of you who understand like soccer, it's like a left wing actually, there's a short burst of activity and then followed by like, as the ball's downfield, you rest. And then, but ultimately you have to know when to attack and when to pass, right? So it made a huge difference. That reassignment, I went from being a mediocre player to being, I would say, a decent one. And at the end of the season, I ended up getting the offensive MVP award, not for the amount of goals scored, but actually for the number of assists. So knowing when to be a team member was really important as part of this, this situation here. But here's what I learned, right? So the difference between Coach S and Coach W was that Coach W was he was obsessed with soccer. He understood the nuances of the sport, right? And he got to know me as a player and really brought out the best he could in me, right? And then, but I realized that really carries throughout our lives, right? So even in organizational settings, I see people gravitate toward like a particular leader because they were fun or gregarious or they were very dynamic, right? But sometimes those leaders were the center of the universe, right? They didn't really have to try to see the potential in their people, right? Because everybody was gravitating toward them. So I think we owe it to ourselves to kind of seek out the Coach W's of the world, right? The people who can really see our potential, people who can see your unique perspective and appreciate that, right? And help you grow into the best version of yourself. So
powerful. Find the right coach for yourself to really enable you to see what's possible and be the best version of yourself is what I'm hearing. Am I in the same ballpark here?
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. What a great story. I'm also a soccer player. So shout out to our soccer players out there. World Cup coming up here in just a few weeks. Very excited about that.
Yes.
All right, let's jump into the rapid fire questions here. Looks like one more question in the chat here before we do that. Just like I'm not an athlete. If you had to describe yourself not that long ago, author wouldn't have been a word you would have used. And now you would say, yay. What have you discovered in your own slingshot quest and you've just been on with writing this book?
Yeah,
Erica.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Erica.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Erica. You're right. Author is not a question. And I remember telling somebody about that earlier. I was just like, oh my gosh, writing is so difficult, right? But then this is part of my own slingshot. I had internalized that message that writing was difficult, right? And what I didn't realize at the time that I know now is I just didn't know what I didn't know, right? Which made it scary. And that's true, I think, in terms of like how we want to relate it to our own slingshot quests in the world, right? So, it's like there's a lot that you don't know, but there's a potential for you to be able to discover more about yourself and more about, the problem that you're trying to solve. That is going to help you along this way here. So
focus on problem definition, not solution, right? And when we can really see what we're up against, then we can start to move forward in a meaningful way.
And it doesn't seem as scary.
Love that. Erica, thank you for the question. All right, let's dive into my favorite part of the episode, the rapid fire questions here. Victoria, are you ready? I wish we had I need a drum roll.
You know what? As ready as I'll ever be, but I told you I'm kind of slippery in this department here.
well, they're quick ones, so it'll be fun. Favorite sandwich, or I think that's always a good one to start with. Favorite sandwich, Victoria.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm not a huge sandwich fan, but if I were to choose, I'd probably say banh mi sandwich.
I don't know that I've ever had one of those. Is that a pork product in there?
You have not lived. It is a Vietnamese sandwich that is usually made from either roast pork, roast beef, and I think I've seen chicken versions of that as well, or sometimes even vegetarian versions. But then here's what's makes it really special is that in addition to the grilled meat and on a kind of this like French, beautifully baked French bread, you have a light layer of mayo, and then you have cilantro, and then you also have like sweet pickled daikon and
Mm.
jalapenos and some sweet pickled carrots on it. So it just gives like it hits all the sensorial,
You know,
pieces like at once.
for someone who claims to not like or eat a lot of sandwiches, that's quite a vivid description there, Victoria. So well done. So this, as I said, this is the fun part where we get to learn really all the valuable things about you, right outside of the book. So favorite color.
Purple.
Oh, love it. Which I think is pretty prevalent on the cover of your book, right above your head there on the screen.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
favorite or most memorable vacation spot?
There's been so many, right? But I'm going to have to say at this point, it's a toss up between, let's say, Belize and the Alps.
Wow, two very different setups, but
Yes.
both sound lovely.
Yes.
Uh,
It's the magic below the waterline because we go sailing a lot, and then in Belize, and then it's like seeing the high altitudes, and it's just the majesty of the Alps is pretty incredible. Takes your breath
wow,
away.
quite a contrast. I love it. Scariest animal for you, my friend?
Hmm. So I just moved to North Carolina, and I didn't realize that this was a thing for me. But the scariest animal, and I didn't even know, well, it fits into the animal kingdom, is that I didn't realize that there was such a thing called snake season here.
I didn't either.
so, so I have had more encounters with snakes than I probably care to in my entire lifetime. So
Not your favorite. That's
not my favorite. Quite the opposite, actually.
I'm very sorry to hear that. Better fruit, apples or bananas, Victoria?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Tough.
I will go with bananas for now because I eat bananas every day. All the potassium.
We're gonna have to agree to disagree on that one, but go. That's okay. Favorite
Okay.
smell?
Favorite smell. So I grew up on an island, and there's something about that just hits you in your soul when you like have the smells from home. So for me, it's the ocean.
Nice. Can I ask what island you grew up on?
Okinawa.
Oh, very nice.
So it's an island that's like 45 minutes from Taiwan and 3 hours from Tokyo.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Last photo on your phone.
Hmm. Great question. It was probably some screenshot of an article. Actually, it was. It was a screenshot of the resignation of the
Oh, the
short-lived
Prime
British
Minister.
Prime Minister that I sent to a friend of mine.
Very nice, very nice. I have to look now. For me, get a fantastic. For me, is a fantastic bumper sticker I saw on my drive home from the Packer Washington Commanders game last night, which said, "Keep honking. I'm listening to Slayer," which I thought was quite an interesting moment on the DC Beltway.
That was very
Uh,
specific too.
very specific. I thought that was a funny one. Where did we land here? Favorite song to sing with or without an audience, Victoria? We're not going to sing it today. Don't worry.
Okay. That's a great question. So every day it's like a new reel for me, right? So like I would say, but I would say one of the constant songs that I've been singing throughout this entire pandemic is "I'm Surviving" by Bastille. So
Very nice. And what a apropos song for the journey you've been on.
yes.
What is one thing you should really throw out in 2022?
I probably throw out in 2022. Um, Great question. It's funny because I'm actually somebody who tries to keep things pretty well purged in my house.
Nice.
I think you know what? There is actually a pile of papers with random notes all over it from probably this book journey. So I probably need to just go through them and know what to keep and what to throw out.
Time to sort those out. I love it.
Time to sort. Yes.
We heard a little bit about some of the interesting things you're doing and some of the goals you have. What would you put at the top of your most audacious goal? Maybe the one you haven't shared with the world yet that you want to do in the next 6, 12,
Mm.
18 months.
Okay, so I'm going to put something out there that I would say is probably going to be the scariest thing I could ever do. And that would probably be speaking in front of a very large audience about this topic. I love this format, but man, that would take it to the next level. Okay, now that I have it out there,
It's out
I'll
there.
have to make sure I don't run away from it.
I'm sensing, like a lot of folks that come through here and we have this chat. This feels like a really compelling TED Talk to me. I'm just going to put it out there.
Okay.
this concept of identity. Favorite praise quote for your book?
Favorite praise quote
Those are the
from my
quotes that are on the back of your book, for those who might not know, that
Yes.
people write.
So I ended up getting a few of them, and there was something that was just really heartening. There's a psychologist in the UK. Actually, I think you know her, Leslie Corbin.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
so she actually
Also
talked
in
a
the
little bit
program.
about. She read through my book. She actually asked for the whole copy, and she's just like, "Wow, this is magnificent." And I was just like, "I'm like, you read through it? Wow, thank you." And so one of the things she says is that it captivates her, Victoria Shiroma Wilson captivates her audience attentions with vibrant stories and inspiring case studies, substantiated by extensive research and practical and informative exercises. A complex and thought-provoking subject is made accessible through her engaging style, uncomplicated use of language, and depth of knowledge about her subject. So I felt like, wow,
Wow.
it just, encapsulates everything I wanted people to know about the book.
From one doctor to another. That's pretty impressive. Well done, Leslie Corbin. Most unique or memorable moment in your writing journey? And we just got a couple questions left. So if people have questions, drop them in the chat and we'll wrap up here in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, so I would say the most unique and memorable moment in my writing journey was actually knowing when to push and when, and to iterate, and when to say, we're done. Right. So I would say the cover design of my book. So the first three options that came back, I was like, I like elements of each one of them, but I don't love all of them. And I actually put it out to my early supporter community, and it was all divided in terms of what they preferred. So I actually went back to my designer, and she was so good about working with me. And now we have the cover that we have. But to be honest with you, I actually had to go really overcome my own resistance and also my own cultural narrative about really not pushing. Right. I'm like, accept for what it is, right, at the moment. But I was like, you know what? I think this is a moment that I think I need to push and iterate a little bit more. And I'm glad I did.
That is awesome. And what a beautiful cover you landed on. Well done. What would you say to those considering writing a book, Victoria?
Do it.
Well done. A+.
All of you have a beautiful message to share with the world. Don't hesitate. Do it.
Right. And part of this process, it takes you from idea to published book, and how to sort through that and build this book, not write it, build it. And that's a really, really important part of the journey. Last question. Describe your writing journey in five words that would describe your writing journey. Could be a sentence, could be 5 words.
Well, we'll start with invited.
Love it.
I would say enthralling, all-encompassing.
That feels like more. Is that 5? All-encompassing? That's 4. Well, sorry. All-encompassing.
Enlightening.
Love it.
And heartfelt, in that I felt so loved and supported by everybody who shared this journey with me.
That is a really unexpected part of this. I think many authors find through this journey is that connection you have by putting yourself out there, creating something, and finding that connection with your content, your readers, your old fans, your new fans. So cool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Last thought to leave with our listeners here today, Victoria.
Last thought. Thank you so much for coming. Please keep in touch. I love to hear about your journeys through your exceptional future, and you know where to find me on LinkedIn.
Victoria is easy to find out there. She has a great story to tell. If you find, what I'd encourage all you to do is think about 5 people who need to hear this story about identity and unlocking what that can do for you and become a power to you, as opposed to maybe a hindrance in some cases. And go out and get your copy before the end of October and share it with a few of your friends. Well, we got this, Victoria has this great deal going on. And check out her podcast episode this Wednesday on the creator community on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Obviously, YouTube has video, which is fun. And go out and get your copy today. Thanks for joining this episode of Meet the Author Live. Check out Victoria's book wherever you buy books online. And as I said, see her full interview coming out this Wednesday. I'm your host of the creator community, John Saunders. Keep creating. Victoria, thank you again. Great to see you. And thank you, everyone, for listening in today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.